So, hey guys, I just wanted to check in for the week. You should have looked at the PowerPoint I posted on Friday under announcements so you can get a sense of the general expectations for the paper that's due Friday, the first draft, in terms of the outline, how it should be set up and all of that. Today, I just want to look at what we're doing for the week, and I want to focus specifically on introductions today. So I'll post a video on introductions today, a little brief video. Tomorrow I'll post a video on body paragraphs and I'll spend a little bit more time with the quote sandwich tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, I'll post a video on conclusions. So you can just check in with the videos as you write over the course of the week. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Not quite feeling well today, so be patient with me. All right, so the first thing I want to point out is the modules. So it's all about the paper. So it's not that's primarily what you're concentrating on. But I did get an email saying, okay, you have this coding exercise, the Malcolm Gladwell and the 10-hour rule. My computer will. All right, so it's kind of talking about like helping you practice using a quote before you begin kind of putting quotes into this essay that's coming up. So the 10-hour rule is actually the second chapter in Outliers. So you actually have to click on Outliers and open it up and go to the second chapter. We're moving through the book. So it's not going to be its own separate file. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to go back to modules. So this week you have, as always, the brief little quiz on They Say, I Say, which is due on Thursday. You have the exercise with quoting material based on the 10-hour rule. And then on Friday, you're submitting your first draft of your essay. And then once you submit, that's going to be peer-reviewed. A classmate will look over it. And then you're going to have next week to get me in the second draft. All right, so I'm moving on to what I want to talk about for introductions. And I'll post this. So the parts of an essay are, again, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. In a basic 5-paragraph essay, the introduction is 1 paragraph, the body paragraphs are 3 paragraphs, and the conclusion is 1 paragraph. That generally is super basic. It doesn't work if your essay gets longer. So you want to think about the essay in terms of parts, not necessarily always paragraphs. So building on that, here for this first paper, I give you a model or some examples of how to approach this. So we talked about how a good rule of thumb is to kind of always begin your introduction with an attention grabber. So here, my first introduction model is a 1-paragraph introduction. And I'm beginning with a quote from Malcolm Gladwell. And so this is just a sample. So if I look over it, Malcolm Gladwell's The Matthew Effect states, and then here's my quote, here's my citation, which is the page number. Because you're citing a PDF, which does have page numbers, you just want to put the page number you got the quote from at the end for that in-text citation. And then in this chapter of his book, Outliers, Gladwell explores the myth of individual success. I'm not really explaining the quote because I'm using it as my attention grabber here. In my body paragraphs, I tend to explain it a little bit more. So now I'm moving on to my summary. So in this chapter of this book, Outliers, Gladwell explores the myth of individual success. Success for Gladwell is not only a result of individual talent and effort, it also depends on family, community, when and where one is born, and even one's birth date. Gladwell uses Canadian hockey to prove his point, and then I didn't write a whole summary, you would finish out your summary there. Now here is my thesis statement. So I'm disagreeing with Gladwell. So I'm setting up my thesis with a however to show that I disagree. Like, however, it's going to be like, okay, so he says this, however, I'm saying this. So however, Gladwell's argument makes people victims of circumstance and discounts the power of individuals to change their lives in the world. Individuals can always rise above their circumstance because ultimately everyone is more than where they come from. That's my thesis. So my paper is going to be about how people can transcend the circumstances of their life because we are all more than that. This is a one paragraph introduction. So here the quote serves as my attention grabber. It's a brief one. Here is my summary. So I'm not going to have his full name and his full title to begin the summary because I have it here. So once I do that one time, every other time I refer to the text or refer to Malcolm Gladwell, I just use his last name. And then here, those last few sentences are where I begin to set up my quote. Here's where I'm transitioning, my thesis statement. Here's where I'm transitioning into my thesis statement, and here's the thesis. This is just a model. Now, what you want to remember is that the thesis always ends your introduction. I know your introduction is done because I see a clear thesis statement. If I don't see that clear thesis statement, I'm like, I don't know what the paper's about. You have to make sure that that's there. All right, here's an example of a 2-paragraph introduction. And it's a choice, like it depends on what you like. For this paper, you for sure can get away with just a 1-paragraph introduction. And your attention grabber does not necessarily have to be the quote. It can be a series of questions. It can be, generally anything that will get me into the paper. But the point is that for here, it's a shorter attention grabber. So I'm just gonna put it with this summary and thesis. Here, my attention grabber, I went with a narrative. And so it's a longer, like a personal story. So it's a longer attention grabber. So it's going to take up a paragraph. So therefore, I cannot combine it with the summary and the thesis statement because it's too long. So this is a sample of a 2-paragraph introduction. So here's my attention grabber. Because I'm telling this story, it's going to take up 1 paragraph. And so it's just a basic story, right, about my life. And because I'm talking about individual effort is more important than, where you come from, the story should reflect that. The story should always point to your larger argument or your thesis statement. So here's my story. I was raised in North Philly in a single parent home. My family was considered lower middle class. We struggled with all the problems that usually plague the poor in America. My mom, however, always believed that I could better my life if I just put the work in. She pushed me to excel in school, and I graduated at the top of my high school class. I received a full academic scholarship to college, and I also gave the valedictorian speech. I was determined not to let the circumstances of poverty define who I was or who I could become. I realized that I had the power to change my life. However, others believe that individual success does not always transcend cultural and societal context. Here's my attention grabber, right? And I'm setting it up. Like, this is what I believe. I believe that as an individual, I can do my own thing. I can rock out. I can, rise above the circumstances of my birth. And here's my transition where I'm setting up Gladwell, right? So this is a transition sentence looking ahead to Gladwell. However, others believe. And then my next paragraph is just a summary, my thesis. And so here, if you notice, I didn't begin with when I began with my summary here, I didn't have his full name and the full title because I already have it here. But when I come down here, I do, because this is the first time I'm seeing Malcolm Gladwell. So I have to have all that information. Malcolm Gladwell's The Matthew Effect explores the myth of individual success. And all of this is the same now. It's the same summary, right? I'm going to finish it here. And it's the same thesis. And so I'm setting up my thesis, however, shows I'm disagreeing with Gladwell. So I did disagreeing because it's sometimes harder to write a thesis statement that disagrees with the overall argument of the text. So if you were going to be on the side of community, you would just go there, right? So, something you can just begin with the thesis. You don't need to do, however, you would just go right into the thesis. So, the community and the place where you're born kind of matters way more than yada, 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 individual effort. And then you would kind of fill that out. So yeah, that's it. You want to use this as a model. I'll post it so you have it. So it's just another tool. So as you write your introduction, you can refer back to this in terms of the setup. And so again, the introduction can either be 1 paragraph, attention grabber, summary, thesis, or it can be 2 paragraphs if you have that longer attention grabber. So it'll be attention grabber, summary, and then thesis. And generally that's the model an essay always follows. Like it can get longer. So say if I'm writing 20 pages, my introduction could be 2 pages if I'm writing a 20-page paper, because I'm doing a lot of setup and I'm probably providing a lot of background information. But again, I always know that the thesis ends my introduction. So as soon as I see that thesis statement, I know I'm done with my introduction and I'm moving into my body paragraphs. This only has to be like a 2-page paper. Most of you are going to write 2.5 pages at least to do a good job, or at least to get like a B. You probably are going to be closer to 2.5 pages. All right, so that's it. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, you want to shoot me an email. Tomorrow I will post about body paragraphs, and we'll go over quotes and the quote sandwich and in-text citation again. And then on Wednesday, I'll post about conclusions, just so you have something each day as you write. All right, take care. I'm going to stop my share. So again, any questions, concerns, just email me, and I'll see you guys later.